Hi everyone, it's Kim. Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to give Halloween a break and focus on fall instead. The seasons are starting to change and the weather's cooling down and the leaves will be changing before long as well. So let's look at a new collection from Spellbinders called Autumn Archives, and we're going to concentrate on these four dies in all of our cards today. You can purchase each of these die sets individually, or you can purchase them as a bundle, and then that saves you a few dollars if you get them as a bundle. So I want to start with one card where I've used all of them, but let me introduce you to the sets. Our leaves are called Falling Leaves, and there's also some acorns in there, 4 different sized acorns, 4 different types of leaves. And then we have Changing Trees, and we'll play with this one and have some fun with this one. There's 3 different types of trees. And then there is the Autumn Alpha. And I was fascinated by this font. When I first saw this, I wouldn't think of autumn, but I thought of a circus for some reason. So this one I'll be using year round. I think this is going to be a really fun font to use. And then finally, documenting labels. And what I really loved in this set were these little words. And that's something I'll probably use a lot of. I can use the other pieces as well, but these are really what caught my attention in this die set. So let me start with a sample that uses all 4 of them, and then we're going to look at a lot more where we just use the individual die sets. So fall leaves, I was able to use every one of those sets for the trees, the leaves, the alphabet set, and then the one word. And I just love the dies that cut into the paper. So just a way to use all of them. One thing on the tree, we're going to talk a little bit more about how to have some fun with these trees. But on this one, I did not line up that back layer with the front layer. I thought, it's okay that my very back base layer shows a little bit. And I kind of use that as a jumping off point for some of my other trees. So a very basic fall card. And this is one that you could use as Thanksgiving too. So a lot of the cards we look at, if you wanted to put Thanksgiving in there, you could certainly do that. So I just cut out a bunch of trees. I just pulled out some cardstock and started cutting. So this is, let's see, 2 of the other trees. So let's pull the tree die out, Changing Trees. So we just looked at this one in the previous card. So now we're looking at this one and this one. And again, I just pulled out my cardstock and made trees and then put them together later. But a couple things. So you can see that there is two ways of doing this. One with the branches on the outside of the base part, and then the other one has 2 pieces. So you can see back here how there's a base piece, and then you can combine these 2 pieces and then punch out like the leaves of the other 3 trees. So on their trees, they used the branches in the background, layered up the 2 top layers, and then put basically the base of the tree behind it. And I thought, well, I'm going to do something a little different. So this one's done the same, where my branches and the trunk of my tree are on the outside of the base. But on mine, and you'll see it easier on this one, I layered my tree branches and trunk between the 2 leaf layers, because I thought in real life you see the branches through the tree. So that's what I did. And I did it on this one, although it's hard to see. And the other thing I did was, on this, they lined them up perfectly. They lined those layers up perfectly. I chose not to do that. I just have mine kind of willy-nilly here and there. These 2 are laid out differently. I kind of like seeing that base layer pop out along the sides of the top layer, and then I don't have 2 totally identical trees. So that was one thing that I did, and that really all started because I was too lazy to try to figure out how to line up all those little edges here. I thought, I'll be forever trying to line that up. So this was fun. I just thought, make each tree more individual. And then I used my leaves down here. I did use my ink drop paper pads for a lot of the trees, because then it was just ideal to have all those different colors. Same thing for the leaves. And Celebrate Life in Full Color. That is from a Better Press plate. This is called Real Color Sentiments. Again, if you're not into the Better Press, you could glimmer these, but these talk about color, and I thought those are perfect for my fall trees. So Celebrate Life in Full Color I thought was perfect for this card. And again, this is not your probably typical colors for a fall card. This one could also be used for Thanksgiving. So more fun with the trees. This time I used the other tree, and I'm not going to even try to guess what type of trees these are supposed to be, but you can see how this is lined up perfectly around the edges for those 2 layers. But as you can see, I did not do that. I just went for it, and they're just kind of however they came out. Again, I did put my branches between the 2 layers, and then this one over here, you could see kind of the branches between the 2 layers, and then just used one of the words and my leaves on the words. Let's look at that. So we can see how they're all cut out with the same die there. Let me flip this over. So they have a die that matches each of those words, but you could also use the more decorative dies. You'll have to cut this out first and then put this word in, and that's what I did here with Noted. So you can see that's a different base die, which is this one. I can't stick the word in there, but I can certainly cut this out, and then it's easy enough to line up one of the words that will fit in there. So Noted did fit. So I could have a little more decorative edge, and then, the same thing here. You could use these or this. So you're not just limited to using this one die to die cut those words out. You can play around, and you may have something else you want to die cut these words into. So just a different color. Again, you could use this for Thanksgiving. And You Make Every Moment Golden is from that Better Press plate again, the Real Color Sentiments. So this one I think would be great, not only for my fall cards, but for my spring flowers next year. And then one more tree. This time I had this piece of paper, and all I had of this piece of paper was this, what I'm showing you right now. So I thought I'm going to pull out, because the trees were sort of in line with the design of this die set. So I pulled out paper to kind of replicate what the trees were in the paper, and just had fun with that. And because of how this tree looks, that's why I put my branches on the outside of both of these layers. So there's another way. Instead of putting it underneath or between my 2 leaf layers, I just put it on top, and then again just lined them up. And doing this one, I thought, well, I'm certainly not just limited to fall trees. I could use just the branches in the winter, and I can use the trees again when they're starting to leaf out in the spring and summer. So really, even though this is called changing trees, they could be changing to summer trees as well. So just another look. And Thanks is a die that I had from a different set. I wanted to use this die from Documenting Labels, and then I just went through and found something that would fit into that. Again, just go through your die sets and see what you've got. I had this Altenew set, and Thanks fit on that decorative die. So that's why it says Thanks. You could use anything, or you could stamp, whatever you want to do. But check out your paper. Maybe you've got some paper that looks somewhat similar to the designs here of this die. Okay, so now I thought I'm going to start pulling in other dies to use with this collection. And this is the first one I want to show you. And it does have Crazy Fall that's die cut into that scroll. So, or excuse me, not Crazy Fall, Cozy Fall. So Cozy Fall. I just took these 2 pieces and laid those dies on there after I had this done. Now, if I had known what I was going to do with this from the beginning, I would have done this in a little different order. I would have taken this top layer here. There's like 2 layers to this scroll, and I would have stamped it, and then I would have die cut out Cozy Fall before I put the scroll together, because there's so much thickness here. You might be able to lightly see the imprint of the outer edge of the die. So if I didn't want that to happen, I should have just die cut into my top layer of the scroll. But I'll know that for the next time. My stamp is one that from Catherine Pooler. Oh, I think this came out several years ago. What is this one called? That's a good question. Why can't I find that? Blowing Leaves Background. But this came out a couple years ago, but I love it because it's a nice big stamp. And I did cut, stamp a piece of paper this size, and then I just die cut out the scroll. But I stamped a bunch of those at once, so I'm sure we'll be seeing more of those. Then I added the leaves and the acorn. And I love that this has 4 different sizes and kind of styles of acorns that I can use by themselves or in conjunction with the leaves. So very simple little card there. And I could stamp on this. I could do something else. I could turn the scroll, this way, I guess. No, this way. If I wanted to use it, this is the way they show it on the packaging, but I thought, I'll try it this way. So my scroll is from Altenew, and I bought this one to use for Halloween. So we will definitely see it again, but I thought it worked good for this. This is called Parchment Scrolls. So I have the big scroll and then the smaller ones tied up together. So what I did on this, just so when I use it, it's easier for me to line everything up, is I actually made each one of the pieces and then just attached it to the inside of the die set. So this is what I used for today's card. But we'll definitely see that again because I bought that for something in particular for Halloween. Okay, so now let's go on to another card where we can pull some of our older dies in. I don't have a lot of squirrels, but I do like this squirrel from Sizzix. Again, this is an older die set. This is called Harvest Animals, and it has acorns and leaves as well, but I wanted to use that squirrel. I know there's other squirrels out there. I've seen them, but this is what I have. So my little squirrel is counting up his acorns while he can still gather them up. So I've used a couple different acorns. The other thing I had fun with was using some paper that was dark. This is actually paper that had like a map on it that was really tiny. So I thought, oh, you don't know that, but it gives me those great colors to use. And my leaves, and my good old squirrel. Now, my little clipboard here, I didn't have one that small, but I made one using this die from Tim. This is Vault Noteworthy. I knew I had this, and I thought maybe this would work, but the actual die is actually bigger than this, but if I hold it up to my squirrel, you can see way too big for my squirrel. But I used pieces of this die set to make my own little clipboard. I used this little label piece over here, and that was a perfect size. Then for my back part, for the part to hold on to the paper, the clip part, I used half of this piece here. I just die cut it out of silver, and then I just adjusted it to where I wanted it on this piece, trimmed it off, and then for the top of my clip, I just die cut out this little bit. Again, I trimmed it down to where I wanted it, and then I just cut my own little piece of paper to size. My pencil is just a little piece of yellow, just a thin little piece of yellow paper, and then I just took a brown marker for the tip and a pink marker for the back for the eraser, and just made my own little pencil. And happy autumn. So I wanted to use autumn, but this doesn't really give me like a full sentiment. So I used the autumn, cut that out with that base die, and then I just went through my dies to find happy, the word happy. There's a million happies out there. I pulled out this one, Merry Everything Words, and just used happy. It also has Happy Halloween and Happy Thanksgiving. That's one of my very few combinations of those words, but that works. So you may have other dies you can use in conjunction with these words to make a complete sentiment. So love my little squirrel. I think I pull him out every year. And then I got to where, well, what else could I do? Let me look at my dies, come up with something totally different. So this one, when I was thinking about what are the smells that remind us of autumn, whether it's pumpkin spice, whether it's the smell of aspen leaves after they've fallen off, the cooking that we do during the fall, what are the smells that we associate with fall? And let's bottle those up. So I have this wonderful perfume bottle, Gorgeous You perfume bottle from Spellbinders. I am not saying that I would make this a fragrance to wear, but just something I could smell and enjoy and recall fall. So I love the bottle. I just did it in fall colors. There's that beautiful ribbon. I could use the acorn and leaves to decorate the bottle, and then autumn here is again from the documenting labels. So very simple, just to add a look of fall onto a die that maybe you would not think has anything to do with fall. But I love the colors. The colors alone of fall are very inspirational for me. So then I pulled out one of my favorite, most used dies of the year, and it's these hands. And, think of what this hand could hold. So I used both of them. The first one I'm going to show you is this hand here. And it's perfect to hold on to an acorn. I didn't have to make any adjustments on my fingers. I used it as is. Stuck a little leaf behind it. And then Happy Fall. Happy again is from the Merry Everything words. And then I did add a second layer, that copper layer, which is kind of difficult to maybe see, but it helps that black happy word pop off the card. And then Fall from the documenting label set. And this is another one. Again, you could put Happy Thanksgiving if you wanted to. Not your typical Thanksgiving card, which I kind of like. And then the other hand I used as well. I did make this for Thanksgiving, but definitely not traditional Thanksgiving colors. And this one, again, I used that word happy and then just Thanksgiving, and laid on the palm of the hand an acorn, and then just tucked in 3 of the flowers behind it. And I don't have a lot of words that say Thanksgiving. I've got this one. I could have used that, but I also have from Photoplay this one, which is a little different font, so I decided I'm going to go ahead and use that. And again, I made it 2 layers just to pop Thanksgiving off. So I don't know if you can see that second layer kind of as a drop shadow in the back of it or not. But that got me started thinking about fall cards, or probably more likely Thanksgiving cards, because I will send those out, where I probably won't send too many fall cards out. That I can just kind of do for my own enjoyment, I guess. But take a look at your dies that maybe you've used year-round and how you can incorporate them with some of maybe the new dies or your fall or leaf dies that you have in your stash, and just come up with some different and unique combinations. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you again in a future video.